Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Okay, okay. Hey, Big Bree. Hey, Linda. Hey, A King from Memphis, Tennessee. You know I love it down there. Okay. Okay. Reverend, how are you, Pastor Williams? Doing well. Thank you so much. Oh, I will not be here next Friday. Okay. Just so that you know, I will not be. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you. Okay. Let me, can you bring this down, Postmate? Bring down the radio. I want to make sure that we have her have a clean line. Can you keep speaking, Pastor Williams? Good morning, because you were cutting out. I just want to make sure you don't cut out. Okay. Um, Postmate, can you make sure we have Dr. Knighton up by about 6:10, 6:15? Mm-hmm. Please do. All right. So thank you very much. And just keep trying her until you get her. Okay. If you haven't gotten her, just let me know, but always keep trying until you get them. So, Pastor Williams, how you doing? I am doing well. Thank you so much. Daryl, Daryl is saying, praise the Lord, everyone. Shirley is from beautiful Philadelphia. Andre, Linear Bob from San Jose. A King from Memphis, Tennessee. Linda, Big Bree, how you doing? Got a lot to talk about today. Did you know, Pastor, that they are making the athletes who participate in the Olympics sign liability waivers? They will not be able to sue. The International Olympic Committee is making the athletes sign liability waivers. Oh, yeah. I don't know. But if you get sick, you can't sue them. Oh, yeah. So we're going to be talking about that. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. It's just like they are just pushing, 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 pushing. I mean, they're pushing so hard. Okay. It was really cool yesterday. I mean, like really, really cool. Like I am, I got a little space heater out. Well, I to be fair, get cold a lot, but I was like, whew, hey, thank you so much. It got nice and chilly. Well, we've had that the past few days. Yeah, we've had that. That's, you know, and of course we have such New York centric national news. They act like there've been no other storms. And it's just been a lot of, it's been tough. Okay. Oh, well, just be careful. Okay. Okay, I need you to turn. Thanks so much. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, everybody. That's right. Time to have a great weekend, everybody, and I hope that you do because we're in the throes of summer. Even though yesterday it was very cool in Chicago, I'm Santita Jackson. Coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, where it stormed a couple of days ago and then it was in the 60s yesterday. Unbelievable. It's July. Minneapolis, St. Paul, AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today. I want you to call me or text me at 773 WCPT. 773-763-9278. GWC and Drew Lawyers gives you the opportunity to text. I want to hear what you're thinking about the Olympics. Dr. Shanina Knighton and I are going to talk about that. Liability waivers must be signed by the athletes. This is coming from the International Olympic Committee. This is where they make their money, everybody, right? It's a multi-billion-dollar franchise. They have got to make their money, and they are telling these athletes that if you want to participate, you must sign this form. You must absolve us of any responsibility if you get COVID or anything. Wow. What do you think about that? And then we're going to be talking about violence in the United States today. That's all over the headlines, and we need to know what do you think about that? What do you think about that? I mean, where is this coming from? And many people feel that we are the most violent country on earth. Is that true? Indeed, Dr. King said the greatest purveyor of violence, it broke his heart to say it, in his time was the United States government. He was looking at the violence at home. He said the bombs that we drop overseas, and there are plenty of them, are exploding at home. Is that still happening? It seems so. We're seeing a sharp uptick in violence expressed by guns, but we have violence expressed verbally. We have a lot of violence in the United States, and we're going to be talking about that in the next hour. So, before we get some good news from Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. Chicago, we're going to have a high of 72 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 78 degrees will be our high up to the north, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 259 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 105 points. The S&P 500 closed down 37 points. And in baseball, the Cubs were shut out by the Phillies, 8-0. Shirley, did you hear that? Your team was triumphant, 8-0. Well, perhaps the Cubs will vindicate themselves when they play the Cardinals later on today. The Twins were triumphant over the Tigers, 5-3. They'll be playing them again today, and later on, the White Sox will be playing the Baltimore Orioles. All right, everybody, and wow, Phoenix is up 2-0 in the NBA championships, the World Championships. The Suns 118, the Bucks 108. COVID-19 vaccines saved nearly 280,000 lives, according to new research in the United States. But the declining immunity and rising variants are complicating things, everybody is saying. Pfizer says it's seeing waning immunity from its vaccine and is picking up efforts to develop a booster dose. However, the FDA and the CDC say Americans don't need another shot just yet. I'm going to talk with Dr. Shanina Knight and ask her what she thinks about all of that because we're getting a lot of mixed signals and we need to know just what it is that we need. Everybody is still keeping all eyes on Haiti, all eyes on Haiti. Apparently, the killing of of the President Moise was so brutal. He was shot so much that it took his eye out. Can you believe that, everybody? And his wife, according to press reports, was the victim of stray bullets, and she is reportedly, in a South Florida hospital trying to recuperate. A nationwide manhunt in Haiti is underway for people involved in Wednesday's assassination of the president. And so authorities say that the armed group responsible for his murder were professional killers, as we've talked about, everybody. And two Haitian Americans, for example, were arrested in that. And so people are trying to find out just what happened as he was assassinated in his home. How were they able to break through security? Where does Taiwan fit in all of this? According to the Washington Post, the break-in of the Taiwan embassy in Haiti following this assassination has put a spotlight on Taiwan's high-tech hub connections to Haiti. What is going on, everybody? There's much more to this that is being said than we even know. So let's continue to pray for the people of Haiti. President Biden and Vice President Harris held meetings yesterday to reinforce the White House's commitment to protecting voting rights. Vice President Harris announced a $25 million expansion of the Democratic National Committee's I Will Vote campaign, which aims to address voter suppression ahead of next year's midterm elections. You know, we'll be talking about that next week, everybody. So we've got to continue to talk about that. Are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? Do you have a job? Job openings stayed at a record high of 9.2 million vacancies in May, while resignations dropped slightly from an historic peak. What do you think about that? The quits fell to 3.6 million from a record high of 3.9 million people quit their jobs in April. Well, that's a lot of people leaving these jobs. Indeed, a third of hospitality workers will not return to the industry during the labor shortage because they want higher pay, according to the Business Insider, better benefits, and a new and better work environment. What do you think about this? You know, Dr. Max Wolf told us the world that we left in 2020 is not the world that we're returning to in 2021. So you call me, text me. Are you going back to your job? Are you going back to your job? And surprise, surprise, wait for it, everybody. The leading 14 big pharma firms paid out more to enrich their investors than they spent on research and development from 2016 to 2020. Are you surprised? This is a report published Thursday by the United States House of Representatives Oversight Committee. That's right. They spent more money on paying their investors than they did on research and development. Is that what they're supposed to be doing? Well, I think it's, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Is it Zayla Avant-Garde? 14-year-old from New Orleans. She won the National Spelling Bee, everybody, the Scripps National Spelling Bee on Thursday night. She became the Bee's first African American champion. Yay! And guess what, everybody? She is also supposed to be a basketball prodigy. Oh, yeah, with three Guinness World Records in dribbling, jumped up and down, and let us. I mean, can you believe this girl? She's unstoppable. So proud of her. She spelled what, Mariah? No one even knows what that is. It's a fruit. I was like, what is that? And she spelled it correctly. 14 years of age, World Guinness, and I can World Guinness Book of World Records holder. And now she's made history. She's the first African American to win the Scripps National Spelling Bee. And of course, President Biden reached out to her immediately and congratulated her. Congratulations to her and to her parents and family. They've got to be so proud. We all are. Oh, Pastor Tisha Dixon Williams, we need some good news today. There's so much going on. The weather is crazy. I needed a sweater yesterday in Chicago in July. I mean, I was sweating the day before. It's just, oh, I guess. I'm sorry. Well, you know, we've had that too here in Chicago. And you know, and the lake is flooded. The water is very high. They've had to shore up Lake Michigan because the water has been almost hitting Lakeshore Drive, particularly on the south side. It's like, whoa, what is this? This is crazy. This is crazy. Well, you have Elsa coming up the coast, right? The hurricane now it's a tropical storm, but it's giving you all a lot of water. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Well, we're praying for you today. And of course, you will have your wetsuit on because you're going to need that because you were out on in the Hamptons. So, um, Pastor Tisha Williams, everybody, First Baptist Church of Bridgehampton, New York. Give us some good news.
Oxen were plowing, the donkeys were feeding beside them, and the Sabaeans fell on them and carried them off and killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was speaking, another came with another travesty. I alone have escaped to tell you while he was speaking. Another came with another travesty. I alone have escaped to tell you while he was speaking. Another came and said, I alone have escaped to tell you. 4 times messengers came to Job with tragedy and came with the message, I alone have escaped to tell you. In March 2011, the Jewish Museum in New York featured an exhibit titled Houdini, Art and Magic. The Hungarian stunt performer and illusionist was world famous for his magnificent escape acts performed throughout the United States and Europe. And whether performing his stunts like the Chinese water torture cell or the milk can escape, he always managed to escape. And it's been said that at the core of Houdini's magic was the theme of liberation. Liberation from jail, liberation from poverty. His posters proclaimed him the world-famous jailbreaker and handcuffed king. Houdini was justly world-famous self-liberator. He was the magician of the marginalized, the illusionist of the immigrants. And you know what? I can relate to Harry Houdini today because even today we're still trying to escape. We're still trying to get out of what we've been confined to. The flat broke are still fascinated by the fetters of fiscal inequality. The padlocks of poverty have produced panic and oppressing on every side. Immigrants are imprisoned in impounds. We can relate to Harry Houdini today. Social citizens are shackled by social injustice, and you can still step right up for a sideshow suffocation and the sporadic fighting of strange fruit suspended from trees. We can relate to Harry Houdini today. But while he was world famous for his escape, even him could not escape death. He could cheat death, but he could not escape it. And yet today we see 4 messengers void of magic who did. And I explored their experiences, and I couldn't help but to notice some similarities between history's greatest escape artists and these messengers who managed to escape. Whether it be Houdini, Dietrich, Angel, or Blaine, escape artists work alone. Much like our messengers here declare, I alone have escaped. Second, the messengers escaped otherworldly events. Much like magic tricks are both inspired by humans and at the mercy of the divine. But this is where the similarities cease, because magicians never tell the story. According to famed magicians, there's a magician's code, which is never to reveal secrets. And while the magicians are committed to keeping the secrets of their survival, Job's messengers are committed to telling the story of their survival. I alone have escaped to tell you. Often when we consider Job, we rejoice because in the end he gets double for his trouble. But have you ever considered Job's servant? Have you ever considered what it means to celebrate the people we leave behind, the people who escape it? There's no shortage of example of escapees throughout history. What does it mean to be among the untold number of Africans who escaped the Middle Passage? What does it mean to be Sarah Collins Rudolph, the often unspoken of fifth little girl who escaped the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama? Well, the meaning is found in these messengers' escape, because it's not just their escape. This is our escape. This is your escape. Let me prove it to you. They say, I alone have escaped to tell you. This statement alone in rapid succession will prove to be unhelpful and annoying until you considered not only that they escaped, but what they escaped. Major travesties. And the word here, escape, as we know it, is the act of breaking free from confinement or control. But however, in this text, to escape means to be delivered. More specifically, the deliverance or escape from that of death. So here's the good news. The messengers didn't escape. They were delivered. Somebody right now, I want you to know that what you're going through is inescapable. You won't come out unless God brings you out. Oh, gosh, I wish you guys could declare that to yourselves today. I didn't escape. I was delivered. Some of you may not have escaped COVID-19, but if you're sitting here today, if you're on this line today, you may have been delivered from COVID-19. You serve a God that holds the key to every crisis, picks the lock on every problem, adds flourish to all of your failures, and marks the deck on whatever hand you've been dealt. I want you to take a moment right now and celebrate this morning, not what you escaped, but how you escaped. You were delivered. Somebody say, I survived it. What's your it? Some of you I know can't wait for this it to be over, and I get it. It's natural to complain about what you went through, but can you take a moment to bless God for how you've been pulled through? Run down your resume of this season and realize how you've been rescued. You survived it. You survived a worldwide pandemic, civil unrest, economic downturn, devastating death toll, homeschooling, working from home, quarantine, and no travel. Somebody today ought to say, I survived it, and I alone have escaped to tell you. Could it be that the sole purpose of your survival today is simply to tell the story? Job's messengers were sent for informational purposes, but God is sending you out today for inspirational purposes. Someone who needs to know that all hope is not gone. Someone needs to know there is a way of escape. Someone needs to know that there's life after this. One of Houdini's famous tricks was to escape from a trunk, and he used it as a symbol of resurrection. Houdini's audiences didn't know what happened inside of that trunk, but some of them believed that when he burst free, undefeated and smiling, he had shaken hands with the Reaper, spat in his eye, and Harry Houdini met death and came back to live to tell the tale. Now, Santita, I don't know too much about a trunk, but I do know a little something about a tomb, because long before the magician, there lived a Messiah who allowed himself to die, be locked in a tomb, only to burst free undefeated with all power in his hand. That's what you call the prestige, because it's not enough to make something disappear. You've got to bring it back. That's why every magic trick, that third act, is the hardest part that we call the prestige. So the good news today is no matter how you've been locked down, no matter how you have been defeated, whether you even had to disappear, I want you to prepare for the prestige, because you survived it and God is bringing you back again. And that's the good news.
Hey, man, I needed that today. Thank you so much. It is no secret what God can do. What
That's
he's
good.
done for others, he's done for you. That is what my pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, we used to sing that every Sunday at Fellowship Missionary
Mhm.
Baptist Church. It is no secret. And you know that it God doesn't keep it a secret now. Thank you for that.
No, God does not.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Prepare for the prestige.
Prepare for the prestige. Ooh, we. Have you written these sermons down? We've got to do
Yes,
something
ma'am.
about that.
All of them.
Okay, we got to do that because gotta do
All of them.
gotta do that. We need that. You know what?
They're
And I
for
know
my
Doctor
children.
Doctor, I know you've gotten some inspiration today. Resident scholar, RN, PhD, Case Western Reserve University, one of the world's few infection preventionists. How you doing? I know you got inspired today.
I did. My God, tell you that was just so beautiful. Oh, wait, that was my word for today. Okay,
Okay. Right.
he escaped, we escaped and was delivered. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
is she right? Oh, that was good. That was good.
I needed that. I needed that. I needed that. I needed that today. And thank you so much for that. Stay right there. Because, we're talking about the Olympics today. We're talking about transmissions of COVID 19 because we haven't escaped that. We're still in the midst. We're still in the midst. And, what's really surprising is that so many people, they feel that they are free and clear. They feel that they are free and clear. And you said we have got to tell them that they're not. But before we get to that, we only have a couple of minutes before we go to break. I want people to know that the Olympic leaders, according to this headline from MSN, are making sure that the Tokyo Games are safe from liability. That is to say, uh, the IOC, I mean, and they talk about how they want to take care of the athletes and all that, although in the pandemic, they're sending people to a nation that is not vaccinated, like 10%. Wow. I mean, I'd like to know how that's supposed to work if that's what vaccines do. I mean, they're telling me that this is going to save my life, right? Well, guess what? You have to sign this paper, a liability waiver. That's right. If you're going to participate in the Olympics, you must sign a liability waiver, and it reads as follows: participate in the games at my own risk and own responsibility, including any impact on my participation to and or performance in the games, serious bodily injury or even death. raised by the potential exposure to health hazards, such as the transmission of COVID-19 and other infectious diseases or extreme heat conditions. That is to say, if you participate in the Olympics, you must sign a liability waiver absolving the International Olympic Committee in a pandemic any injury you sustain, um, and in particular, if you catch COVID. Now, mind you, you know a lot of people, Pastor Williams and Dr. Knighton, they're going on GoFundMe and they're getting crowdfunded so that they can pay for their hospital bills, whether they've gotten shots or not. Some people have gotten shots and they've gotten breakthrough viruses. You can get a free shot, everybody, but it will cost you a lot of money to get well. See, that's my thing. While y'all are passing out shots, pass out universal single payer health care so that if we get sick, we can get well, right? Don't you think we should do that too? So I want to hear from you. 773 WCPT 773 773 I mean, while on others thou art calling, pass out the health care while you're passing out the shots, while you're sending people door to door to convince me to take the shot. I hear you. But pass out some health care. Because if you do get sick, and it can happen, and it doesn't have to be COVID, it could be cancer, it could be heart disease. People need to be able to get well and not worry about going broke. Think about that, everybody. But what about the International Olympic Committee forcing athletes? If you want to participate in these Olympics, you must absolve yourself responsibility for any injuries you sustain or COVID-19 if you get it. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? I mean, and they tell you it's safe there, right? Okay. I just want to know. I don't know this is making this is just sounding kind of crazy to me. You know, this is crazy, crazy, or is it? 773 763 9278 773 763 9278. Maybe Shakari is getting a break. She might be safer staying home with Joe. Do you hear me?
Chicago's Progressive Talk, 820
Postmate, can you bring the radio down just a bit, please?
And online at WCPT 820.
I love you, Gary.
Where facts matter.
My sweet.
Check up on health with Chris Whitting.
More than 8%
I love my
of the
Gary
U.S.
Hines.
population diagnosed with
Postman, I need you to bring
and
down
it's
the
a major
radio,
risk
please.
factor in whether you develop
Okay,
disease.
thank you so much.
However,
So I can speak to Dr. Knighton. I don't know if Pastor Williams is still there.
I'm still here.
Okay, can you believe they have them sign that waiver?
Yeah. You know,
I just
no.
when I saw that, I said,
can-
Well, we don't have to this today. She is on a flight. She has a big case, but you know we have you. If you'd like to stick around, Pastor, you can. But I just it is a minute. You're having a coronavirus surge. The Delta variant is surging there. For a set of reasons, Japanese don't really embrace vaccines or just anything that the West brings to them. They don't just run after it. And they've had quite a history with us. You know, 2 atom bombs that were dropped on them by us. When they had a rollout on measles and rubella about 30 years ago, they didn't have a good time with that. So, uh, you have to respect it, and we have to know people's experiences before we judge them, right? You need to,
Correct.
you need to know their histories. Don't call them anti-vaxxers because the media are beginning to sound like propagandists. It's just this.
And we also have to respect cultural context as well.
Okay. Yeah. Because some people, like if you listen to, I mean, goodness gracious, my elders are now ancestors because they have gone on. Both of my grandmothers are gone. My great grandmother has gone on. I think all of the homemade remedies that they would make, particularly my great grandmother, because just they didn't have access to two physicians, and they lived in the South, which was a more rural area. You know, people would grow some vegetables in the backyard, or they went shopping frequently or as much as they could because you didn't have the preservatives in the foods, all of that. So it's something to think about, something to think about. But Dr. Knight and I want to start with the Olympics, and then we're going to go to how people are handling having had these shots. And, when you tell them, you can still get COVID and you can still transmit it. I mean, it's like they're like, well, no, I've had the shots. I'm safe. I'm like, no. And you could be asymptomatic and you could transfer it to me. They're talking about the unvaccinated people are the danger. I'm like, no, these people are walking around here thinking that they don't have it or thinking that they can't get it. Y'all are the problem too. And I don't think we should have some civil war about this. But this is sound. That's why Dr. Knighton is here to clear this up. I just wow. So we're going to start with these Olympics, and I want to know what you think about that. Can you believe that language? And they're like, oh, no, everything is fine. Really? Am I supposed to trust you? I don't. They banned the spectators. The emperor has said, I don't know if this is that safe. I mean, much of the country, most, they don't want, oh, girl, this is just, but there's so much money in this. Billions of dollars. Billions, billions, billions upon billions. So we're going to come on up.
So Santita is interesting.
Oh, hold
I was
up. We're
gonna
about to come up.
say,
Oh, hold on. We're coming
okay.
up. Oh, we're coming up.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, the Santita Jackson and Friends page, and we're streaming on WCPT 820. Home station here in Chicago, WCPT, and Instagram, Santita Jackson IG, Twitter at Santita J, and there's so much that's going on. We're talking about these Olympics. We've got, of course, I think Pastor Tisha Williams has been holding on to get some information, but we also have, of course, with us Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, PhD, resident scholar at Case Western Reserve University. She's one of the world's few infection preventionists. So if we want to be clear on how we can prevent infection, she's one of the few people in the world who can really be. She has a very, very detailed presentation. We're going to have to do it one night so that you can bring out your slide presentation and really show us. It's shocking the ways in which we just, without even knowing it, we put ourselves in harm's way. There's been a lot of discussion about the Olympics, and I've been bringing it up for some time because it was always kind of interesting to me that you have one of the least vaccinated countries on earth for COVID-19. They've had the least amount of shots. Just even a couple of months ago, they were like a little more than 1% shot up, and now they're at about 10%. But it's slow moving for their own reasons, And the Japanese people, according to poll after poll, are reluctant to have the Olympic Games there. But you see, it's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that the International Olympic Committee generates, along with these list of sponsors, Canon. I mean, just there are billions upon billions of dollars in these games. So when you decide you can't just unplug the games because you're unplugging a whole lot. I mean, and now they've banned spectators from the Olympic events. How can you that's part of the fun, you guys, when you hear the crowd cheering, well, that's over. Like, except for some of these events in Fukushima, interestingly enough, the site of probably the worst nuclear accident in the history of the world, That's where they're going to have 10,000 people there. You help me to figure this out, everybody. Maybe Shakari got off. I mean, bless her heart, Dr. Knighton. Can you say blessing in disguise? So let's talk about this. I mean, because the Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, said that if athletes participate in the Olympics, they must sign a liability waiver. And included on that liability waiver is the contracting of COVID-19. If you participate here, if you get COVID-19, we bear no responsibility, which means ultimately, financially, you have to bear the weight. It can cost you a lot of money. People who've gotten COVID and who've had to, and who have recovered from it, and most people do, sometimes the bills have gone up into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Dr. Shanina Knighton, help me with this. What do you think about them? If you want to participate, you got to sign a liability waiver.
I am not surprised. For one, when you think about the amount of contact that these individuals will have with each other, when you think about the potential contact that they're going to have with individuals in the city, and when you think about the amount of contact that they're going to have just being around each other, when we're talking about many methods of transmission, whether we're talking about the touching of environmental surfaces, whether we're talking about being in the same hotel lobby or the hotel elevator, taking the same hotel escalator, when we're thinking about talking and having to eat together, when we're thinking about the screaming that may take place. This is not a surprise to me that they would make them sign a waiver. The other piece of it is I know that I keep bringing this up, but many are looking at COVID-19 vaccines as being cures. They are not cures. The purpose of the vaccine was to make sure that it can reduce the chances of someone having clinically relevant COVID-19 or death. It does not mean that they will not get COVID-19 or be able to transmit COVID-19. So when we're looking at the situations that are happening now, it is showing us that many people thought that the vaccines would replace preventative behaviors. It's, oh, I'm safe now because I've been vaccinated. When in fact, I am even much more concerned now than ever. We talk about the Delta strain a lot. I hear it. Delta strain, Delta strain, Delta, Delta, Delta. And I love the word Delta.
Me too.
But in this context, I know you do. But in this context, we're treating this strain as if there aren't going to be other strains. We're focused so in on the strain to act like this is something that we did not think would come. Just like the flu vaccine does not last forever, we knew the COVID-19 vaccine was not going to last forever. So when people say breakthrough strain, is it a breakthrough strain, or is it the fact that potentially the vaccine's effectiveness is not working against the mutating strains, just like the flu vaccine does not work against all of the strains every year? And so with that being said, how does COVID-19 still get transferred with or without this Delta strain? We have to remember, let's say, Santita, you're vaccinated. So you are vaccinated, which means that your immune system and your body is protected from having a horrible response or clinically relevant COVID, right? And it's protecting you from death. But it doesn't mean that even as a vaccinated person, you can't go around and touch surfaces and then come in contact with someone that's unvaccinated. It doesn't mean that you can't contract COVID-19 in your nasal cavity and it sit right there in your nose. And maybe the next time, because you're protected and without a mask, you sneeze it on to the next individual. when we're seeing these uptick of cases in kids, it's not surprising to me. I personally believe, as well as I am sure there is evidence, that it is adults transmitting it to kids now. Because adults are so gung-ho on thinking that they are protected that they have forgotten to practice infection prevention. And so now, remember early on in the pandemic where it was a conversation between, oh, even if you're asymptomatic, you can still spread it. Oh, if you're symptomatic, you can still spread it. The vaccinated individuals can now be the asymptomatic spreaders. And that is the one thing that we're not connecting the dots to. And that is what is of concern.
Why aren't we connecting? When you say we're not connecting the dots, what do you mean? I mean, I know I've heard from everyone, almost to not everyone, but certainly almost to a person. Anyone who's gotten these shots, when I back up and say, "Oh, wait a minute," because I keep my mask on, um, eh, they'll say, "Oh no, don't worry, I got my shots. I'm good." I'm like, "No, you can still get it. Um, you can still spread it."
Yeah.
And it is like they look at me quizzically. They it's something that just doesn't register with them. They think that by getting the shots, they are immune. Please help us to understand what is the truth.
Okay, so your eyes, mouth, and nose are all connected to a part of your nasopharyngeal cavity. So when something has, like let's say your nose, it has and mouth and eyes, okay? They are filters, meaning that they are to filter out germs. They're moist, they're warm. So when you breathe in inhaled air, it can minimize, like, let's say, the irritating effects that may happen in your lower airway, okay? We know that COVID-19 has to enter through eyes, mouth, and nose. When you are vaccinated and the antibodies are built up, it is protecting your body from the inside. Remember, you're getting vaccinated typically through your deltoid muscle. So that's working on your system. It does not necessarily work all the way effectively on your nasopharyngeal cavity, meaning that if a person were to come in contact with aerosol droplets, let's say breathe into their nose of COVID-19, and let's say they sneeze that out onto another individual, that person that may have gotten that COVID-19 in their nose because they were vaccinated may not experience a clinically relevant or clinically severe reaction to COVID-19, or they may not die because that is what the vaccine is helping to do. But it doesn't mean that when they sneeze, they won't sneeze it or transfer it on to another individual who may be compromised or unvaccinated, which right now are a lot of the children, are a lot of individuals who have opted out of taking the vaccine for health reasons or one reason or another. Or two, when they're saying, oh, well, a vaccinated person is still infecting a vaccinated person. We have to remember that vaccines still wear off. And so these are ways in which they can be transmitted, even still through our hands. So now we're starting to see a rollback of environmental surfaces being cleaned. People are back touching surfaces and touching their eyes, mouth, and nose. They're back, of course. We still have our cell phones, which are third hand, which are still contaminated. All of these things we're still continuing to interact with without practicing infection prevention, because the way that it has been presented in the media, the way that it has been presented by even our colleagues now, is, oh, you must be vaccinated. Oh, you must be vaccinated. but it's not treating the vaccines as a part of the toolkit. We've rolled back all of these infection prevention measures as if the vaccine was a cure, and it is not a cure.
Let me get Tommy from Chicago. Tommy, what's on your mind?
Well, first of all, let me say good morning to you, Santita,
Good
and
morning.
especially to your guest. And I would like to echo something that most people don't seem to want to get. Because of the absolute erroneous way in which the COVID-19 pandemic has been rolled out, you have a fear that's paramount only to world war. People don't know what the truth is. And that's why we are where we are. We have now created a class of the walking dead and those who are immune. And now when it comes down to these precious commodities known as our athletes and competing on the highest level, oh, wait a minute, the countries can make money, but the athletes can spend their money. And the people who support all of it, well, you just stay home. I wonder at what point in time will we stop as a world and ask, when will there be a harvest for the world? When will individuals stop this absolute hypocritical way and individuals who depend on the commonwealth of their understanding and wisdom? We are in serious trouble. And I got to end you with this one, because the best one of all is just what might have happened if we had just told the truth about what it is in the first place. People, we are in a pandemic, and more importantly than that, we are working on a vaccine. The vaccine may not be 100% legitimate, but it will keep you safe. And more importantly, we will be studying to see what other variants come up that you may have to take a booster shot. And with that, I'll go back to the hollow halls of sanity. Goodbye.
Bless your heart. But you know what will also keep you safe? Therapeutics, which we don't discuss. Because some people have gotten these shots, Dr. Knighton. And I'm just saying, are you telling me that if I get COVID-19, there's nothing I can take? Well, I mean, what is that? So, I mean, help me, walk us through this, please.
So sadly enough, that is something that is not talked about as it should be. And we are talking about therapeutics. But even Santita, before we get into that, and I think it's very important what the previous caller just mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the fact that we are in a pandemic and people are selfishly wanting to get back to this sense of normalcy. And understandable, because I understand that there's mental health issues and many other things that are associated with this. And so I'm not dismissing that at all. But I think we are in this sense of disbelief of where we really don't think that we're in a pandemic, or we really don't think that something is going on. And I encourage people that when you look at the Spanish flu, even more deadlier when you look at the history of the bubonic plague, the survivors were the sanitized people. They were the people that made sure they were cleaning their hands, building their immune system, making sure that they were taking precautionary measures and taking the disease serious. Right now, unfortunately, the deaths that are happening is because we are not being vigilant enough to find out, what can I do to protect myself? And so if we're talking about what can I do to protect myself, understanding just as you said when you said therapeutics aren't discussed, I get it. Everybody's not going to be perfect about not getting COVID. But for those that do get COVID, if you are experiencing mild to moderate symptoms, you can ask your provider about treatment options. There are things such as monoclonal antibody treatment, which can lower your chances of your symptoms getting more severe. These antibodies, what they do is that they help your immune system recognize the virus and fight it off more effectively. So this is what happens after you encounter COVID-19. Whereas the vaccine is given to say, hey, we're going to give this to you just in case. These therapeutics are saying, okay, now that you have it and you know that you have it, let us help your body to get treatment and to neutralize it within these first 10 days. Mention what I said. It is preferred that in 10 days or less that you have any onset or symptoms that you seek treatment from your provider. If you are hospitalized, yes, there are FDA as well as emergency authorized use drugs that can also help lower the severity of symptoms and actually helps more so to reduce the spread of the virus to the rest of your body. So these are things that are not commonly discussed, but they are important because these are the things that have to be put out in the public domain so everyone doesn't just say, oh, I'm going to stay home, fight COVID-19, and take the risk to see what will happen to my body. When there are treatments out there that you can ask about, so that way you can lower your chance of having severe symptoms. Please do not wait to seek treatment. Your health can turn for the worse very quickly when we're talking about COVID-19. So it is important that you make sure that you seek treatment as soon as possible if you encounter it. Now, for those that don't feel like they've encountered it or have recovered, if you are not practicing a healthy lifestyle habit, if you are not cleaning your hands often, if you are not aware of the surfaces that you are touching, if you are not masking up in environments where you are unsure, and if you are not deciding to take the vaccine or you are, you have to remember that these are all important tools and that prevention is better than treatment. So it is important that you stay ready so you don't have to get ready because there are many instances that we have in our day-to-day lives that we do not think about that puts us at risk for being sick.
We're talking with Dr. Shanina Knighton, registered nurse, PhD, one of the few infection preventionists in the world. She's a resident scholar at Case Western Reserve University down in Ohio and Cleveland. And we're talking about um, COVID 19. Many people feel that once they get these shots, they're good. They can't get COVID, they can't spread COVID. But more importantly, they feel that they can't get it. And that's not true, everybody. And what we're not discussing enough, therapeutics. Therapeutics. What you can take or what can be given to you that can help you to get over COVID-19. And I just think that's very great, Dr. Knighton, for that not to be discussed because I mean, that's not even on our radar. We think that if we don't get the shot, we're just, or the shots, then we're just doomed. I'm like, no, there's more to this. And mind you, there are a whole lot of pieces to COVID-19. Nobody wants it because the damage can be so profound. But I guess I keep bringing up therapeutics because if you get them early enough, maybe that damage could be mitigated. Am I right or wrong?
No, that is exactly it. And it's interesting that you say that because many people don't even think about therapeutics when it comes to flu.
Mm.
Like there are things like if you were to get the flu, you can actually seek out treatment for the flu so that way your flu symptoms are not as bad.
Like
And so it's
Tamiflu?
the same exact thing. Yes,
Yeah. One of my
yes.
friends took it and she said it was a lifesaver. She said instead of being down for a week, I was down for like 2 days.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. So it can shorten up the duration and severity of being sick. So there are a lot of antiviral drugs that can be recommended during the flu season. In this particular instance, I know that we've seen the science focus a lot on the vaccines, but there are other antiviral drugs that are also being developed should someone encounter COVID-19, because we also understand that vaccines are not perfect and that they are also, too, everything that they're doing is meant to reduce the clinically relevant symptoms or severe symptoms. What that means is yes, if I get a little itch in my throat, then I can stay home. But if I'm having breathing issues, if I got other chronic conditions going on, that's going to require me to utilize the healthcare system. If it is a lot of people having to utilize the healthcare, that increases the risk of other patients as well as healthcare workers inside of hospitals getting COVID. So the goal is that if people get vaccinated, then you can reduce the clinically relevant symptoms so you don't have to worry about the higher risk of transmission. All of these things, talking about vaccines, as I mentioned, hand hygiene, everything, masks, physical distancing. It's all meant to reduce risk. Nothing is going to be perfect. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of us have to turn the lens off and stop looking for a solution or a silver bullet. We do not have it. We are in the midst of a pandemic right now, which means that this is the time for you to use your knowledge when it comes to hand hygiene. They've given you mask as being an option. I do know that we have to be more so concerned about how to wear them properly and launder them and which masks are appropriate versus which ones aren't. But I'm saying the more we know and the more we learn in our toolkit, we have to remember that as more solutions are put in our face or on our radar through media, it does not mean that these solutions replace the previous ones. We have to continue to practice them all. Otherwise, we will continue to end up in the same situation. I know Dr. Deb has said it in the past. I know I say it. The guidelines and the precautionary measures have been rolled back entirely too fast, and they have been completely minimized and not emphasized in a way that we know can keep people safe. If you don't think it works, look at last year. When people say, why is it that we were able to significantly lower flu cases? It is because people were masked, people were cleaning their hands, and surfaces were being cleaned, and we had limits in terms of people not being in at work sick. Mm-hmm. It was acceptable to not go to work sick. And so when we look at those things and we roll them back now, my concern is that we're going to be encountering COVID and flu come the fall. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer.
30 seconds.
Encouraging people, stay ready so you do not have to get ready by making sure that you are well aware of having your environmental cleaning supplies, you are having your hand sanitizers, you are aware of where you are,
5 seconds.
Making sure that you are not touching your face, and making sure that you are cleaning your cell phone and your keys. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. It is important, and especially now with us being able to see that there are cleaning materials on shelves.
All right.
Make sure you get them.
Get them, everybody. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Let's talk about violence in America in just a few minutes on the Santita Jackson Show. Loving Dr. Shanita Knighton. Thank you, girl. Whew, thank you so much. Whew, it's a lot. Because people really do. Hey, Miss Wanda. Giving my love to Mr. Corey. He's my mother's dear friend from D.C. Her neighbor from D.C. and Miss Wanda's down in North Carolina. We love them all so much. And so everybody, Daryl said you're staying masked up everywhere you go and you're washing your hands. Yeah, I just trying to tell people, just hey, just an ounce of what is it? Is an ounce of precaution is worth a pound of cure. We have to.
Yeah.
Just know that when you get these shots, that is not the end. You do need to still take your vitamins. You still need to work on boosting your immune system, your own immune system, no matter what. Yeah, boy, I think because we just take pills for everything, we just think that that's all you need it's just a one-shot deal, no pun intended. And Dr. Knighton, that's just not the way life is. Life is a process. There are no, I've got about a minute. What more do you want to say to the Facebook Live audience?
So honestly, it would just be going into details, and I'm going to start with just shopping, okay? Because we all got to go out for food. Be aware that when you are in the store, gloves are not going to save you. You have to remember and think about what you're doing with those gloves. You are grabbing your food, which is something that someone else may have touched. You're putting them on the belt. Then you have the cashier that are going to touch them. Remember that the cashier also touched the previous individual's item. You then take your gloved hands and you put them inside of your purse, inside of your wallet to grab your card. What then happens to the gloves and the card? That is contamination between the gloves and the card. You then still keep the gloves on, but you put the card back into your wallet. You then grab your groceries and you grab your keys, and you then get into your car. Even though you sanitize your hands at that point, I want you to think about everything that you just contaminated because you had the gloves on, opposed to just taking a moment to clean your hands. It is important that you clean your hands often, clean your hands frequently, and think about what it is that you're touching. Think about even when you make it home, am I going to wipe down some of the
Attorney Wilson's on.
to make sure that I'm not bringing anything into my home that could harm me? Just think about what preventative measures you can take.
Well, you know what? I want to thank you for this today because boy, oh boy, people need to know that even after you have gotten these shots, you still need to take care. You still need to be vigilant. You've got to do that. You've got to do it. That is the thing. So, whew, yes, this is a thing. Before you go, I want you to say hello to Reverend Jeanette Wilson, Esquire. She is at Rainbow Push, and she's also a pastor. It's good to hear your voice today, Reverend Wilson.
Good morning, Santita. Glad to be on the show again. It's been a while.
Thank you. Well, we have got Dr. Shanita Knight, and she's one of the world's few. And I'm sorry? Close
Mr.
me?
McKee's on.
Okay, perfect. Hey, Dwight, she's one of the few infection preventionists in the world. And she's got quite the compelling story. First person in her family to graduate from high school. She's a registered nurse who has a PhD. And she's an infection preventionist, which is and she's a resident scholar at Case Western Reserve University. And she is one of my favorite people, excuse me, in the world. And she has in preventing infection. So she should be on the Rainbow Push broadcast, on the Operation Push Saturday Morning Forum broadcast. So she can make that presentation.
Send me her information. Be glad to have her.
I'll do it. She needs to be on there. But we have to. Excuse me. And have her come out as much as she can. Excuse me. We need to put her on as many platforms as we can because she has a lot of information.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things that we're not getting from even Dr. Fauci. That's not his specialty. Highly transmissible. Well, the highly transmissible. Thank you so much. Hey, Robert, with a highly transmissible virus, you need to be talking to an infection preventionist. What she just laid out just now. Listen, Janina, Dr. Knighton, can you tell us, just about going to the grocery store and getting, just say if you just go in there for a package, how we could pick up an infection?
Okay, so I was explaining that when we think about picking up a package of meat or anything, the workers had to stock it up with their hands, gloved or ungloved. We then grab those items. We then put those items in our cart. We then take those items and we put them on the belt. The cashier then rings them up. With or without hand hygiene, we realize how many hands those items have touched. We then, without hand sanitizer or some hand washing, go inside of our wallets, go inside of our purses, and grab our cards or grab our phones to be able to pay for our items or grab cash. We then pay for it, and then we then put the change or we put the card back into our wallet or into our purse. We then grab our items, we then get in our car, and then we sanitize our hands. So throughout that process, you've already contaminated items within your possession because we don't think about hand cleaning every step of the way. We don't think about the environmental surfaces every step of the way. Many individuals, when they go to the grocery store, are wearing gloves. I tell them the gloves will not protect them because they do not have the same barrier of sun protection that your skin has. Not to say that your skin is perfect, not to say that your skin is going to protect you from COVID-19.
Mm-hmm. I got 10 minutes, 10 seconds. Well, just every step of the way, she can take us through it. And it's important for us to know It's important for us to know. Dr. Knighton, we love you. And thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, and have an awesome show.
Hey, you have an awesome weekend, but I'll speak with you before the weekend is out. But you just thank you so much. It's already been awesome because you've been here.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It is Friday, July 9th, 2021. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, WCPT 820 in Chicago, and Radio Minneapolis, St. Paul, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Please meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page, Facebook Live, and of course WCPT 820 Facebook Live and Instagram, Santita Jackson IG. Everybody, I want you to meet me over there. Meet me, friend me, however it works over there. And then please, I want you to join my Twitter feed at Santita J, at Santita J. And of course, we are sharing it across different platforms. We want to hear from you today as we talk about violence in the United States. They say that we have a surging crime wave. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? Where did it come from? We know last year people really started buying a lot of guns. There was a lot of fear last year. There's a lot of fear now, and we're seeing a lot of manifestations of violence. Where is it coming from? What is the history? And what can we do about it? Some people, some of these ministers like Pastor McAfee, Jerry McAfee up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, they are taking back the streets. They are literally, not just patrolling the streets. He said, we're getting involved with people. We're getting involved with people, Gary Hines, up there with the Sounds of Blackness. You all are so active in the community. They're getting involved. They're going, people see people who they know care about them on their streets. People who love them, people who know them, people who understand. Is that the answer? Is that an answer? Let's talk about it. I want to hear from you. 763 WCPT 773 763 9278 773 763 9278. Of course, if you want to text me, GWC Injury Lawyers gives you that opportunity. Let's get some of these headlines out the way as we get into the topic today. Chicago, we will have a high of 72 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 78 degrees, partly cloudy. The Dow closed down 259 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed down 105 points. The S&P 500 closed down 37 points. Well, the Cubs were shut out by the Phillies, 8-0. Yes, Shirley from Philadelphia. I can't believe it, but perhaps they'll vindicate themselves when they play the Cardinals later on today. The Twins, however, were triumphant over the Tigers, 5-3, and they'll be playing the Tigers once again today. The White Sox will face off against the Orioles later on today. Well, wow. Talk about Phoenix on a roll. 2-0. They are up in the NBA Finals, everybody. And last night they pulled off a big one. 118-108 over the Bucks. Do you give them the lead, or do you think the Bucks are going to come back? Oh, we'll talk about it, everybody. Of course, in the coming days. COVID-19 vaccines have saved nearly 280,000 lives in the U.S., according to new research. But declining immunity and rising variants are complicating things, everybody. Pfizer says it's seeing waning immunity from its vaccine and is picking up efforts to develop a booster dose. However, the FDA and the CDC say Americans don't need another booster shot just yet. We will see. A nationwide manhunt is underway for the people involved in Wednesday's assassination of Haitian President Moise. Authorities say the armed group responsible for his murder were professional killers consisting of more than 24 people, including 2 Haitian Americans, everybody, and retired members of the Colombian military. 17 suspects have been detained. People reportedly killed 3 suspects, and the shooting of the president was so brutal, he was riddled with bullets, and it is reported that it took out one of his eyes. My goodness. So what is going to happen? Certainly we're praying for his wife, who is reportedly in a hospital in South Florida. It's an undisclosed hospital. And she is recovering from her wounds, but she is still in critical condition. And people are asking the question about Taiwan. The break-in at the Taiwan embassy, according to this Washington Post report, in Haiti, following his assassination, following President Moise's assassination, has put a spotlight on their connections to the Caribbean nation. You know, they are a high-tech hub. So, and they had become an increasingly important ally to Taiwan, as other governments have switched their diplomatic recognition from Taiwan to China. So they had been in a bit of a back and forth, Haiti had been, with China because of the recognition of Taiwan. So we will see. A group of people in full military gear broke into Taiwan's embassy in Haiti on Thursday morning following this assassination. What is that about? We'll be following that up so we can find out what is going on in Haiti, everybody. Spectators have been banned from most Olympic events, certainly in Tokyo, but in Fukushima, the site of one of the worst nuclear accidents, if not the worst in the history of the world, they can have up to 10,000 people in that stadium. So we will see. In the meantime, the International Olympic Committee is requiring that all athletes who participate in the Olympics sign a liability waiver. That you must sign a waiver that says this: I agree that I participate in the games at my own risk and own responsibility, including any impact on my participation in and or performance in the games, serious bodily injury, or even death, raised by the potential exposure to health hazards, such as the transmission of COVID-19 and other infectious disease or extreme heat conditions. What do you make of that, everybody? Job openings stayed at a record high of 9.2 million persons. The number of open jobs on the final business day of May changed little from the peak in April. People quit their jobs at a rate that we've not seen before. 3.6 million people quit in May. 3.9 million people quit their jobs in April. Wow. So what do you think about that, everybody? Indeed, in the hospitality industry, a third of former hospitality workers say they will not return to the industry because they want higher pay, better benefits, and a better new and new work environment, everybody. Big Pharma, wait for it, everybody. These firms, the 14 big pharma firms, paid out more to enrich their investors, everybody, than they spent on research and development, according to a report published by the U.S. House Oversight Committee. Wow. And let's hear it for this young lady. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Zyla Avant-Garde. She won the 2021 Scripps National Spelling Bee. She is the first African American champion, but she's already in the record books, everybody. She holds 3 Guinness World Records in dribbling. She is a basketball prodigy. Congratulations for her. We are so proud of this young lady, proud of all of these young people who participated in that spelling bee. They all deserve our applause and our continued encouragement. Everybody, what about violence in America? Let's talk about that. An Atlantic magazine report puts it this way: why America's great crime decline is over. Americans, they write, Derek Johnson writes, are experiencing a crime wave unlike anything we've seen this century. After decades of decline, shootings have surged in the past 2 years. In 2020, gun deaths reached their highest point in U.S. history in the midst of a pandemic. In 2021, although researchers can't yet say anything definite about overall crime, shooting incidents appear to be on the rise in many, many places. According to this Washington Post report, we're seeing trauma upon trauma. Officials are worried about the rise in violent crime. They feel that we are going to have a bloody summer as shootings surge in 2021. So I want to know what you're thinking, everybody. What are you seeing, and what do you think are the solutions? Because there are solutions. Dr. King said more than 50 years ago that the bombs we drop overseas are exploding at home. And many war veterans, veterans for peace, they say the same thing. They say the violence that we purvey overseas, we're seeing it here. You don't just see it with guns, you see it in our speech. You hear it in talk radio, you hear it in our political debates. It's gotten quite ugly. Well, maybe it has been. So let's talk about this, everybody. What's going on with all of this? The violence has manifested with guns, but violence in America today. Of course, we got a tremendous panel. We've got Pastor Jeanette Wilson, of course. She's an advisor to Reverend Jesse Jackson over at Rainbow Push, brilliant civil rights lawyer. We've got attorney Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, director of the Push Atlanta branch. Specifically, he has his own radio show. You don't want to miss it every Sunday. It is fantastic. From 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time on the iconic WAOK radio station based in Atlanta. But because it is the internet, the World Wide Web, you can hear it anywhere. Carol, even you on the left coast. That's right, from 10 to 1. You should listen to it from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. And of course, he too is a brilliant civil rights lawyer and, of course, brilliant social scientist, Dwight McKee. Let me start with you. Um, Attorney Patillo, why don't you set the table for us? What about all this violence in the United States? And, what are you hearing? What are you seeing in Atlanta, which has now become this urban hub? Atlanta ain't what it was when I was a child, for sure.
And thank you so much for that, Santita. I think we have to trace this back to the summer of activism that we saw last year. So after the killing of George Floyd, we saw protests nationwide demanding police reform, and we saw many local and even state-level efforts to reduce, to one, hold police officers accountable for harm. We saw many police officers fired, many who were tried. We saw courts of conviction, Derek Chauvins. But the response from police unions has been one of the root causes for this crime wave nationwide. The reason being that many police departments have seen mass retirements. I think Atlanta's down 400 officers, Baltimore's down 900, New York is down over 1,000 police officers. And for the officers who have continued working, they've all but decided they are not going to police or patrol communities until these police reform efforts are repealed. So we're seeing things such as in Atlanta, we have now a no chase policy saying you can't chase people through neighborhoods because of the danger it creates and the collateral damage that it creates. Well, as a result of that, police officers are just simply letting people go. They're not policing at all. And once the criminal elements, the gang elements, realize that the police were all but not doing their jobs in every major city nationwide, that's when we start seeing these spikes of violent crime. And right now, we're seeing a standoff between community activists who are still demanding stronger police reform, the George Floyd Justice for the Policing Act on the national level, then efforts at redirecting police resources on the state and local level. Politicians who are caught in the crosshair between what the populace of the city wants and the need for public service or for public safety, and then the police unions who want things to go back to the good old Wild Wild West days where they could go around, round up people and bust heads in order to get things done. That classic John Wayne type of justice that many of them signed up for. So what we're also seeing is many, particularly black female mayors, I call them the black girl magic wave of mayors, being just decimated by police unions because of if there's no public safety, it doesn't matter what else you do. If people are getting robbed, if people are getting shot, nobody cares about ribbon cuttings. Nobody cares about new community centers, so on and so forth. We've seen Keisha Lance Bottoms here in Atlanta announce she's not running for re-election. We've seen all the battles that Baron Lightfoot is going through in Chicago. Baron Bowser in D.C. is going through similar issues. Contrell down in New Orleans. So we're going to have to find ways to balance the need for police reform with the need to have police actually do their jobs and also to recruit new members of the force who are respectful to the human and civil rights of the entire community, but also are willing to actually police. And I think until we can get that balance in place, it's going to be very difficult to get this crime wave under control.
Dwight McKee, what are you seeing?
Well, America itself is one big crime scene. It's the byproduct of people who come over with swords and guns who've killed populations of other people to take their land and their property, and they protect it with guns. And so you have a culture infested with guns that are accessible to people whose values are operate at a level that they think that might is right. And so those with most guns and the most military are the ones in charge, and that's how they stay in charge. So you take that from the political, social level, and then that seeps down into the culture itself. And so now you have, particularly in the black community in this generation, you have spiritual people who are now dispirited people because our young people don't go to church anymore. They bring street values in. We no longer control the culture. And culture used to be our first line of defense, is that, the blues kept us going emotionally, and gospel and spirituals kept us going psychologically and spiritually. Now what you have is our culture has become almost like AIDS, is that our immune system has turned upon us, and we no longer control our culture. And so now the culture they use that to define black as violent and gangster, and there is a whole dynamic now that works in the culture where you define yourself by how many people you can shoot and kill. Our kids are raised on video games, violent video games. They're raised on images on television of extreme violence. What they see in the streets is violence. So you tie that into what Robert just talked about, with a culture of no restraint, if the police is not restraining them, then it becomes just the Wild Wild West.
Reverend Jeanette Wilson, you are seeing this up close and personal here in Chicago every day.
Well, I think what everyone is saying is violence is both a public health issue and a spiritual health issue. Therefore, to look at it as a public health crisis, you can't just apply one mode of treatment to solve the problem. There's a problem with policing, the structure of policing and the use of police, and when force is necessary and what kind of force is necessary. But then you look at these communities where the violence occurs, it's not as pervasive in some neighborhoods that are adequately resourced, where children are engaged in meaningful and productive activities. We have schools out. Every park should be providing resources and activities and adult supervised activities for children. These kids are in the meantime, in between time, where parents are at work. They're not being guided effectively. And so in the absence of proper adult supervision, they're left to their own devices. The second thing is the children have access to weapons of mass destruction. Where are these weapons? How do these weapons get to certain communities? How are they in the hands of children? These are costly military-style weapons that are in our community. We're in Chicago, fireworks are illegal, yet on the 4th of July weekend, they were dropping bombs as if we were in a war zone. The access to that kind of fire power is not based on, kids just walking across the border to Indiana. They have to get there. They have to get these guns off the train and put the bullets in them. So there's access to these weapons, and they have to stop the flow of guns into our neighborhoods, into these inner city communities. That's by design. The idea that drugs become the major industry in most of these violent communities, there's no manufacturing. What they're manufacturing is loud crack and distributing cocaine, as opposed to distributing healthy activities and healthy job opportunities. Our children are not learning how to design positive games. They're playing Grand Theft Auto, how to steal a car. They're playing these games. They're lured into these social media platforms, the dark web, and no one's dealing with those kind of situations. Our children's minds are constantly being enveloped by the media, negative media images. You look at all of the sitcoms that have our young people, The Shy, we're drug dealers. We live by violence. and I'm not opposed to the idea that Lena Waithe has a program and she's able to make, resource and expose black actors. But we have to have a different image. There is a spiritual crisis that results in children having no understanding of who God is and what God means in their lives. They have no right or wrong. It's do what you want to do. When you look at Lil Nas X and that video that is played even on Saturday Night Live, it's incredibly horrific.
Well,
And
you
to
know
have
what's
children
interesting?
and just
In the industry, I'm not going to mention this gentleman's name because we had this conversation privately. We were just having dinner. He's an iconic figure in the hip hop community and in the popular culture. And Reverend Jackson asked him, why don't you put more beautiful love songs on your albums? I mean, because he's a married man with children. He's been married for decades. He said, Reverend, get albums on. No, 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 no. They will sell. The record executives will not let him put those songs on his album. So you've got the people. And you have people who control what gets on television, the movies that get made. Because I'm sure Lena Waithe, who has been married and all of that. Well, no, I mean it's not just talented. They.
No, but she has a positive talent. I know her mother.
No. I'm saying this is what I mean because I'm looking at the people who control the industry, right? And the people who control the industry, I think we're saying the same thing, Jeanette. And so all I'm trying to say is what we have to do is look at that too. And we also, as we look at the violence in America, everybody, and I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Want to talk as we talk about what happens in Chicago, talk about what happened at Columbine. Because these mass shootings happen in these pristine communities. Where is the violence coming from? It's not just in urban America. It's in the United States of America. So let's well, I've got to go to break. I got to break. So what is coming from, and where's this going? What can we do about it, everybody? What can we do? What can we do? It's an American dilemma. It's an American dilemma, and we've got to deal with it. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Thank you so much. When you all hear me talk, I'm up against the clock, and I've got to get out at a particular time because I'm on more than one station. But Postmate, all you have to do, and I thank you for letting me know who's on. Just say you just give me the name and the city. That's all. Okay.
Santita, I have to leave in 15 minutes.
Right. And I'm going to move this around, but I got a couple of calls I need to take. But thank you so much, everybody. So, want to know what you all are thinking? Let me know what you're thinking about this. Excuse me one moment. Let me see. I got a couple what's going on here. Okay. Sorry. I'm trying to operate. You all can talk amongst yourselves. I've just got some things I need to do here. Right here. Right here. Okay, Dwight, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because maybe it's the rain, but you were going in and out. Okay.
I was saying, Dwight, you really are correct about this whole idea that we were all raised with having access to God and information about God. We went to church. We had some spiritual foundation. Mm-hmm. These kids are raised as if they are aliens, and they have no historical frame of reference. They're just here. They come, disconnected communities, disconnected families.
Well,
so they're raising themselves.
Yeah.
And we can't continue like this.
No, we can't. But, we're going to have to approach them, in a loving way.
You have to talk to them.
We have to talk to
them. We can't treat them like they're some robots or something, some animals. They're not animals.
Well, they're not animals, and they are our product. and they're the product of
we produce this.
of a society. That's why I was talking about the people who run Hollywood, the people who run and shape the culture, entertainment. There's some things that they are demanding of our creatives today that are very unhealthy, and they have to be called out on that. Because when there was a time when you could look at the Grammys and you could look at these award ceremonies and you could hear some of the most brilliant performances from great artists. Now they look like devil worship ceremonies. I don't know what's going on now. And I do know what's going on. These people are asking these folks to not be God, and that is what you're seeing. That's what you see. That's what, and these kids are talking about it. And it's awful. It's just awful. If I see more fire coming out the floor and people in these strange, is this a ceremony or are you performing a song? What's this? What you doing? It's all of that. It's all of that. I mean, because the hip hop community didn't start off here. Rap, this was not rap. When it was black owned, this is not what they did. Sylvia Robinson and Sugar Hill Records, that's not what they did. It was great, fun music. And when it crossed over and became entertainment for the wider culture, then it took a turn. Women became bees and promiscuites and on and on and on. Very unhealthy in the culture. It's very unhealthy. We need to know, we need to call it out for what it is. So we're going to come right back to you all. So, okay, let me do that. Okay, you all. Okay, Robert, let me hear you.
30 seconds.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay, Dwight, let me hear you.
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, you still just make sure, just keep talking to me, Dwight.
Yeah, I'm here.
No, this because there's something, your line is not clean. So I don't want people to miss you. Keep talking. I'm coming up in 10 seconds.
We're on after this.
Okay.
Okay, that's you. That you're there right now. I just if I can get, I'm just trying to get you into the right spot. Stay right there. Thank you.
Santita?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Show. I heard no music, so I'm just coming on like this. Hey, everybody. The Santita Jackson Show, WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Call me, 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT. I am Santita Jackson. I want to hear your thoughts on violence in America and what we're going to do about it. Daniel from New Hampshire, thank you for calling us today. Daniel, what's on your mind?
So what's on my mind, and I actually wanted to call you yesterday after watching Morning Joe. You were talking to, Joe Scarborough was talking to, I think it's a senator or the new representative, Ms. Underwood from Illinois, and he keeps asking the question, what are we going to do about policing? I called him before. I'm an aspiring police officer after the George Floyd murder. And he's asking, what are we going to do to quell the issues of police officers feeling like politicians don't have their back? And I gained a new love for Miss Underwood because what we need to do is ask these police officers, if you're willing to run away from the fight now, where were you when Derek Chauvin and all of these other people were murdering black citizens? Tell them we've got your back, but if you're in this for that cowboy mentality, yeah, you should probably go ahead and quit. That's how we need to handle the policing issue in this country. Is tell them, if you want to be a good cop, we've got your back.
What inspired you
to be the community bully?
You said you were inspired by what you saw with George Floyd. How did that inspire you to go into policing?
because we remember Derek Chauvin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like his callousness, he stared at a camera and looked as he's murdering a guy, and he knew he was going to get away with it. And that's absolute insanity. And there's nothing. I mean, we can try to prevent these people from getting into this profession. But what really bugs me is there were, 3 or 4 other guys there, and some of them even said, hey, I can't feel a pulse, but none of them stopped him.
Mm-hmm.
Not one person said, hey, maybe let's just get him in the car. And that's what bugs me. And that's the problem is, Derek Chauvin murdered a guy, but he had 3 accomplices. And I know cops. Like I said, I've told you, I'm a former firefighter. I know cops. I respect them. I respect what they do. And pretty much everybody I know is a good guy and a good cop. But anytime I post something to Facebook, I catch a lot of flack saying, you just hate cops. That's not the case. Wrong is wrong. And just because you're a cop doesn't mean you have to go along with what bad cops do. And that's why I want to be a police officer.
Okay.
Because I'm not. You put me on that call with Derek Chauvin, and he's either going to shoot me or I'm going to get arrested for getting him off that guy's neck.
Well, very quickly.
And I know it's not going to be an easy road.
Well, very quickly, before you go, what do you think, what can police do to help mitigate or quell the violence? What do you think they have a role?
So, police have a hard enough job as it is. I don't believe that there's a whole lot they can do to quell the violence except for taking more sensitivity training. If you want to quell the violence, raise the minimum wage. If you want to quell the violence, instead of giving me and my wife were talking about this yesterday. We could definitely use this child tax credit, but instead of giving me a check, why don't politicians make child care more affordable instead of being like another college tuition? Why don't we make education actually mean something again? Instead of giving me a check to pay for these exorbitant costs, why don't we do something about the exorbitant costs? So I think the burden is less on police and it's more on our politicians.
Well, not just politicians, on us. The politicians work for us, and I want to thank you, Daniel. Thank you. I mean, the elected officials, we elect them, and once we elect them, we start following them. That's not what you're supposed to do. They're supposed to follow you. So we can't take our feet off the gas pedal. It's not just the politicians. You have the corporations that run them. We need to run all of it. Because even these corporations are subsidized by us. They were the ones who were bailed out in the pandemic, not people. We're begging for the $1,200 check now. Crazy. Sending you much love, Daniel. Robert Patillo, what are your thoughts about what Daniel has said?
Well, I think it's absolutely part of the equation we have to be looking into. We have to look into what can we do to actually motivate police officers to police, and at the same time not beat people upside the head or shoot innocent people. We also have to look at the laws we have on the books. We call ourselves the land of the free and the home of the brave, but we are one of the most legislated countries on earth. We have more laws on the books than nearly any country you can think of besides communist China and Soviet Russia. So because of that, we have things such as the war on drugs, which are motivating much of this crime. We saw it happen in the 1920s and 30s during Prohibition. You had Al Capone, you had the mob destroying cities. You get rid of Prohibition, you get rid of a large part of the finances behind the mob because there's no longer that illicit tax upon them. You have to look at our legislative policies when it comes to policing, our legislative policies when it comes to starting small businesses and economic opportunities. We also have to look at all these social inequalities in this country. Right now, you have a space race going on where Jeff Bezos, the billionaire from Amazon, is trying to go to space before Richard Branson, the billionaire from Virgin, is trying to go to space. All they're trying to catch up to Elon Musk, the billionaire who's trying to go to space. So it becomes very, very difficult for them to do so. for them to do so without having any type of social inequities that lead to additional people being impoverished. For every one of them, there are hundreds of people in poverty. So we have to start reforming that.
Jeanette, Reverend Wilson, before you go, your final thoughts.
Well, I think we have to tell the police they must see us as people, see these children on the streets as human, not as some animals, some raging animals that they have to destroy. And so we have to see each other as people, as humans, without regard to race, gender, or culture. The second thing is parents have to take responsibility for their children. They have to take responsibility for raising and rearing children. You cannot leave them to the media, leave them to their peers. We have to raise children. Your mother raised you. There were some rules of behavior that were expected within your family. The community has to take responsibility for making sure that the politicians provide the investments and resources in every community based on the needs of the children in that community. Parks should be made available to every child, not just children who live in affluent areas. We have to have resources for all of the communities equitably. Love yourself and love God. And we have to restore a sense of moral and spiritual health to our children and our families and our communities. This level of hostility and anger is unacceptable. There is the need to feel the presence of God among all people, not just on Sunday. So the churches must go to the streets, go to the community, not with hostility or arrogance, but sharing love, resources, and accountability.
Amen.
So I'm going to do Operation Church the Block. Every church should look at 4 square blocks from where your building sits, meet your neighbors, and communicate with the children and provide and demand the resources from the businesses and all that live there. We owe our children a debt of investment.
Amen to that, Pastor.
So come march with me, because I'm going to start next week. I'm going to change my church community.
Well,
pastors to do likewise.
Yeah, that's what needs to happen. That's what needs to happen. I mean, historically, that was part of the. I would say that was what was so exciting about Operation Push and Breadbasket, Dwight McKee. You had ministers who were ministering in another way. I mean, they were like really in the streets, Dwight, with
we got
people.
To go.
Well, I mean, because that's where you belong. That's where the ministry belongs. Let me go to.
Church is not a building.
No, it's not. It's a community. Blessings to you, Reverend Jeanette Wilson. Everybody, let me go to Pam. Pam, you wanted to respond to what Daniel said?
Good morning to everyone. Just want to say that when people ask parents in the community to do more, I get that, Santita, but you have a whole law enforcement community that is paid to help deal with this crime, prevention, and solve and protect. And I'm living in a community where that's not happening. And yes, I'm advocating and pushing, calling aldermen as well as the superintendent to get more done. So there are families and people who are out here doing the work. It's difficult when you have law enforcement who've been told to stand down by FOP president who is was a racist Trump supporter. Let me just move quickly to Mr. George Floyd's murder. I hope everyone took the time to read the sentencing memorandum by Judge Cahill. I found it insulting and appalling. He talked about not using his sentencing as a message. Well, we know here in Cook County, Santita, that the judges quite frequently use sentencing of black men as a message, as a deterrent. So while I did 22 years, yes, 270 months, but it was not nearly enough. So I contend that the judge handed down that sentencing because he didn't value George Floyd's life, Mr. George Floyd, and he gave some deference to that murdering law enforcement officer named Chauvin. So finally, I'll end with this. Santita, I want law enforcement to go through the same rigorous vetting that they did with the National Guards that they removed from President Biden's detail. We have racist law enforcement officers on the force. Nothing is being done to identify them. There are no policies to remove them. My recommendation, polygraph tests before, during, and after employment.
Let me ask you this, Pam.
Monitor. Yes.
Let me ask you
and
this.
I've said this before.
No. I'm not. No, I'm just saying because you're saying some things that are making me think. Because I want us to zero in on violence in the United States. Because it's not just police officers, right? I mean, we have a friend of my brother's when we were. I guess we were all in college at the time, and you never know the kind of violence that people are living in within their homes. And it was on Thanksgiving. This young man's stepfather. And he was a little more than a boy at the time, not 20, I don't think he was. Um, got upset with him because he didn't take the trash out quickly enough. This is on Thanksgiving Day. Sure. Then he blew his brains out.
Sure.
And I'm just saying that, the police, sure, they're an element, but what responsibilities, what should we be doing? What should we be doing? Pam, I got a minute for you.
Sure. Santita, we know that a lot of the violence is interpersonal. Mm-hmm. And I do not dispute that, Santita, because I know from my personal experience, had a relative who was murdered in a domestic violence situation. So, of course, it is the parent and the values in the household. But, Santita, are we really serious about violence when we have a whole genre of music that promotes it?
No.
We have media, and these messages matter.
About the people who run the industry. They're the purveyors of violence. So I'm just saying that, but also I remember back in the day, Reverend used to have these boycotts of record companies and of records that were vulgar. He said 40 plus years ago that we would be here. He said, if y'all don't stop this, if you don't stop the Rolling Stones from saying that black girls just want to F all night in some girls, this is where we're going. This was back in the late 70s. So I'm saying there's some responsibilities that we have before. You don't want to call the police to your house because they might shoot you. So what are we going to do inside of our house?
So let me just recommend this, Santita.
Okay.
All that I know we can do is hand down the knowledge that we grew up with, that love is critical, respect, that if we immerse our children in our culture, and they know where they came from, I have to believe that'll make a difference, Santita, because it made a difference in my life. Trying to live up, not trying to be better than the next white person, because that's often what we're told, but using our ancestors as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And so...
And stop telling your children that.
Have to go street to street.
To stop, I mean, because whiteness has never been my gold standard. We just need to stop that. But, I'm hearing you, Pam, but I need to get a couple of other people. And I love you, Pam. And I always love hearing what you're thinking. Always love that. Love you. Love you, girl. Love you. Natalie from the South Side. Natalie, what's on your mind today? Natalie?
Good morning, Santita. First of all, we do love Pam. But let me also add, too, that I never hear anyone say we need to diversify that police department because that police department, at least here in Chicago, does not reflect the communities, the 77 communities here in Chicago.
Sure.
So that's the first thing. Second thing is we need a basic income. Mary had it right because you can't treat people like an animal and then expect them not to act like animals. You can't go to school and get a decent education. When you're at home stewing because you don't have any money, you have to give people resources. We don't need anything outside of what other people need. The same thing the Italians needed when they were shooting up each other and they created these programs to uplift them. We need the same thing. When Biden is giving the police department, who already has a multi-billion-dollar budget, and he's giving them another $640, then match that $641 million to the community and give it to the churches where they can disseminate it amongst the people that need it. Because if you don't come into the community and if you don't work with the people who are in the community who see this, then you don't know what we need. I don't see like we're going and walking on 63rd Street and 79th Street and on 16th Street where they're sleeping on the ground and on Madison Pulaski. Come out here and see what these people need. And put some contingencies on. Okay, we're going to give you $1,000 a month, but you're going to go and train. You're going to learn how to have a checking account. You're going to learn how to do this. You can do what you want with the money. We don't want to dictate it to you, but we're going to show you how to budget something has got to change. We can't just keep talking about the same thing every election cycle and using that as a crime as an excuse to, to not do anything. Something has got to change.
Well, I mean, and we have to change. I think we have to demand that our churches change and meet our needs. We're going to have to organize our blocks. There are things that we have to do too, right? Because this is not just the police,
I understand that,
right?
Santita, but I understand that.
Same page. You know what bothers Natalie? What bothers me is I don't think that we have people live, right? Because we're not engaged in education and retraining. We're on the same page here, Natalie. We're not universal basic income.
I think it's a little deeper than that.
Okay.
I think it's a little deeper than that.
Well, hold on. Hold on, Dwight. Dwight, let Natalie finish, and then you respond. Natalie,
It may be deeper than that. I'm not taking it away from anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But first, you have to. My life changed when I got the job. When someone said, "Hey, I'm gonna help you get this job," and I started to come up because I was making more money. I was able to do some things. I was able to experience some things. First, you have to put the money in these people's pockets. We always seem to be resistant to resources because they're giving out this money on this. My daughter went to gifted schools. I see the difference in what my daughter was given as opposed to what my niece was given.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. I see the difference in their lives, how their lives started out. So you have to first.
But Natalie, you know what? Let me say this before you say this, Dwight. Natalie, that's why you got to get involved in organizations because these are things that we've been fighting for at Push, Urban League, NAACP every week. These folks are not going to give it to you. Politics doesn't work that way. You get what you demand.
Wait for everyone else.
No. I don't care. I'm not talking to everybody else. It's just like my mom has told me. I don't care what the neighbors do. This is what you got to do. What other people do is demand. You see them all over City Hall. You see them all over the state legislatures. You see them all over Congress. These people advocate for themselves and they pay people to do it. We have to do the same thing. We have to. Nobody cares about anything. That is not how politics works. I got a minute.
But also, you have to go on again. This deficit is spiritual. It's not economic. This is a spiritual deficit. I did a gospel song.
Okay, Dwight, let me get you in the right place. Keep on talking.
I did a gospel song.
Natalie, stay right there because I want you to hear. I want us to hear each other. Okay, Dwight, but I need a good place. You're not going in and out. Okay.
Our deficit is spiritual.
Yeah.
The role of religion in the civilized society. It's I did a gospel. We need to be born again. I did a gospel song called "Where Would I Go." Ross, who lives in a 100-room house, took the song and put it into a gangster song. We're operating with a spiritual deficit, and because we're disconnected from God and accountability of God, and because we don't see our brethren as having the same value as we have, and as children of God, then we just live wicked lives, sinner lives.
Mm-hmm.
Lives we go back. We live in a value-free society right now. And so unless the spiritual side of us have been revived, we just going to operate based on our own self-interest and whatever works for a society. Hedonism.
Absolutely.
One of the things we do with our West Side is they end up getting baptized. That's what ultimately changed their lives. Is they have money because they sell drugs. It's a values issue.
But I think we have to go back to what is it the mission statement of SELC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization out of which Reverend comes and that Dr. King and Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth helped to found to save the soul of America. And everything comes behind that, which is Dwight's point. Let me bring up Dee before we go. Dee, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Santita and Grace panel. A three-tier solution. First, guns.
Go where they're coming in illegally. All this stress about a gun store with 200 and 200,000 are coming in illegally. Job training. Mayors, utility companies, go to them, mayors, and go to businesses. Train up a child in the way that he should go. Teach these teens and young people so they can know what to do and then place them. Don't let them have the misery of learning and then have to scrape around like I did after college. And lastly, stop marching just in the streets. March up to the game. Your father, the Reverend Jesse L. Jackson and Pastor T. L. Barrett Jr., years ago, didn't just march in the streets. They marched in the streets up to the game. They sat down with them and talked with them and had a plan. So when we do it, have a plan.
And they kept their doors
That's my
open.
feeling.
And they kept their doors open,
Yeah.
and they became part of the organizations. I mean, the thing is, we can't be afraid of people. But again, going back to, I mean, because I talk about economics because economics is a part of it. But if it's not grounded in that which is morally sound, none of this is going to work. And that's what we're seeing. I've got a minute. Robert Patillo, your final thoughts. Thank you so much, Miss D. Robert Patillo, 1 minute.
I think it's crucially important. You have to look at the root causes of many of these things. You have to look at the police departments and their refusal to police and how we can do that within the community. We have to look at the war on drugs and the failures that it has been and how it is the motivating force behind I would say, 70 to 80% of the crime that we're looking at today. And we have to look at the social structure and what can be done to even the playing field along the economy to ensure that individuals have the opportunity to prosper. We talk about many of the other externalities, but I'd say get the easy ones first. Reform policing, reform the war on drugs, work on a inclusive economy, and then we can list what the numbers are after that, and then work through it from there.
Everybody, let's think about this. You know, we do need a profound change because, you know, we keep talking about all the violence, the gun violence, and it's violence. Guns are the means, but our tongues are violent too. The whole language of our political and just even our internal debates in our homes, it's vulgar, it's vile, it's violent, it's mean. Think about that. Life and death is right here in your tongue. That's where the power is. And it's in your thoughts. Thoughts become things, everybody. So we have to think about that. You can change the world. Thank you, Gary Hines and Sounds of Blackness. You can change the world. And changing the world starts with you changing you. So as we look at America being violent, let's look at ourselves and what we can do to become better human beings or the human beings that God made us to be. Whatever your belief system, I don't think we just popped up down here, and I don't think we just popped up down here at one time. We're all on earth at this time together for a reason. Think about that, everybody. I love you. Can't wait to be with you on Monday and on Sunday, of course, on Keep Hope Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. God bless you. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Enjoy the sunshine.
Let's change the world.
Thank you, Coach. Made wonderful job. I'm trying to take some steps, okay?
Yeah, no, I'll be over in like a quick minute. I just got to change the line real quick.
Okay, no worries. Hey, Robert and Dwight. Dwight, do you want to say anything? Do you all want to say anything else to the Facebook audience before we go? Dwight? Oh, I think he forgot to keep you all potted up, but he'll be right back. And if you could stay right there, because I would like for you to have your final thoughts. Listen to okay. All right. One of my best friends is getting married. Yay. In Los Angeles. Yay. Am I going? Yes. Am I going to be on the plane 4.5 hours? Mm-hmm. Oh, but I've got the masks of life, everybody. And I put bacitracin, which is an ointment, all around my nose and just inside of my nose. And that is supposed to be a barrier between me and COVID-19. And on and on it goes. So, and happy birthday to your son, Jewel. God bless you. God bless you. He's a great human being. He's a Cancer. My birthday's a week from tomorrow. That's right. Oh my gosh. Okay. D. Ray, Melissa, You love the new music? Yay! We're gonna have more new music for you too. Absolutely. Gonna bring some stuff from me. Can you believe it? And let me say hello to Jewel. Happy birthday to your baby, Andre. Sending you much love. Uh, but yeah, and yes, I am going to France. I sure am. I sure am. I am. I am. And I'll try and call in and let you all know how things are going. My father is getting the highest award that the French government gives to civilians or military leaders. It's the Légion de Guerre, I think it is, the Legion of Honor. And so we're very, very uh, honored that they would honor his lifetime of work. It's one of the rare awards in the world, and so we've been invited to be there. And the President Macron of France, will be bestowing this honor upon him. And so we're very, very excited, blessed that God is letting him see. Number one, that God let him see old age, and that people are. I'm not just saying thank you to him, but when I think of him, he will be carrying Reverend James Bevel in there with him, and Diane Nash Bevel, who's now Diane Nash, and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, and Reverend Abernathy, and Dorothy Cotton, and Zernona Clayton, who's still with us, and John Lewis, and so many people, and Whitney Young, and James Farmer, and James Orange, and so many people he will be carrying in there, because indeed, it is their work collectively that is being honored. That is being honored, and we thank the French government for honoring all of the nameless, faceless people who walked in the streets and who pushed to have uh, us included in the Constitution. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. So it is exciting, Nina. It's exciting, but it's exciting like when I think of all of these humble people, when I think of the Greensboro Four, when I think of all of these people, he will be carrying them with him. If I continue, I think I'll start to cry. But that's what I think about. A whole lot of people will be sitting in that room with us when he gets that award, when he gets it. But I will be here most of next week, so don't worry. I'm not gone just yet. But I'm going to let you all go. Let me see. I am going to see. I'm going to let you all go. And Dwight and Robert, you all can hang up. I'm going to let you go because we got Keith Fluid. Hey, sweetie. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thank you for your support, Keith. My Keith, we sang together with Roberta Flack years and years ago, eons ago, but he went on to just great things. He's been singing with everybody in the world. He's a great, great singer. You know that. Love him, love him, love him. Um, Let me see. Okay, everybody. So I love you, and I'm going to let you go. And I'll see you Sunday. Keep Hope Alive, 7 to 9, excuse me, Central Standard Time, everybody. And you know what we're going to do, I'm going to end the show and go to keephopealiveradio.com so that you can stream us live. Okay? Keephopealiveradio.com. And also go to the iHeart app and enter Keep Hope Alive Radio so that you can go to the different radio stations that will be streaming us live, like Patriot AM 1150 in California, the Buzz Cincinnati, the Buzz Cincy, and on and on and on. So go to the iHeart app, keephopealiveradio.com. I love it. I haven't been young. My Uncle Andy, are you kidding? No, 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 no. I was really, except for Zonona Clayton, thinking of a lot of people who've made their transitions. Um, and thank God Uncle Andy is still here. He's still here. And Diane Nash is still here. But most of those great, 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 great people, they have gone on to receive their just reward. And God bless them all. Fannie Lou Hamer. Oh boy. So many, so many, so many people that we're thinking about. So many people, so many names that will. Viola Liuzzo, James Reeve. There's so many people whose names we don't call. Um, so many who have worked to create a more perfect union. Think about that, everybody. Some people have really worked really hard, black, white, brown, yellow, red, people from every kind of human being, from every different walk of life. They've worked real hard. So think about that and send prayers up to them and to their families. I love you, everybody. All right, it's boiling hot there. I don't think it's going to be boiling hot here in Chicago. There we go. I love you guys. See you on Sunday on Keep